You cannot control the mind with the mind. Have you ever noticed that when you're deeply stressed or just completely panicked, trying to simply think your way out of that bad mood almost always makes it worse? Your thoughts start racing like a runaway train, and suddenly your own mind feels like your absolute worst enemy.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking the incredibly fascinating, sometimes dense neurobiology from Dr. Andrew Huberman and translating it into a highly accessible, practical toolkit just for you. We're going to look at how you can completely bypass those racing thoughts and actually use your physical biology to regain total control over your mind and body.
Here is the roadmap for our toolkit today. We're going to cover everything from the mind-body connection to the biology of heartbreak, how to master your dopamine, and finally, we'll build the ultimate daily routine.
Let's dive right into Section 1, the mind-body connection, or bypassing the runaway train. Let's establish the foundational rule for handling acute stress.
Okay, so to really grasp this, we first need to define the autonomic nervous system. I want you to picture this as a giant biological seesaw inside of you. On one end of the seesaw, you've got extreme alertness and stress. On the exact opposite end, you've got deep rest and calm. This system governs where you sit on that seesaw at any given second, and it literally dictates whether your thoughts feel totally manageable or entirely out of control. Now, what's wild is how our biology actually alters our physical perception of the world based on that seesaw. In a relaxed state, your visual and mental aperture is wide open. You can easily see the big picture and entertain multiple options. But in a stress state, your pupils literally dilate in a way that narrows your visual field. Experts actually call this soda straw vision. You become hyper-focused on the threat, and as a result, your thinking becomes just as narrow and rigid.
So the absolute crucial point is this. When you are trapped in that soda straw view, thinking will not save you. When the mind fails, you must use the body to control the mind. Because this autonomic nervous system is a two-way street. Engaging in physical behaviors, like taking a brisk walk to burn off that adrenaline, or using specific breathing techniques, literally shifts you along that biological seesaw right back toward calm.
All right, moving to Section 2, the neuroscience of heartbreak. Let's look at the biology of grief. We all know the feeling, right? But why does heartbreak actually hurt so much physically? Well, biologically speaking, grief isn't just a state of sadness. It's actually a highly motivated state of autonomic arousal. Your brain is reacting the exact same way it would if you were literally starving and a delicious meal was placed just on the other side of an impenetrable brick wall. Your body is desperately trying to reach something it is deeply, deeply motivated to get.
See, when you love someone, your brain builds this incredibly complex three-part map of attachment. It maps space, meaning where are they right now? It maps time, when will I see them next? And it maps closeness, how deeply do I rely on them? When a breakup or a loss occurs, that closeness remains, but the space and time coordinates are completely shattered. So your brain is left frantically trying to bridge an impossible distance.
And because of this, true healing actually requires confronting that fractured map of reality head-on. Distracting yourself, self-soothing with alcohol, or obsessively checking their social media, that only prolongs the trauma. To actually rewire the brain, you have to lean in and allow your nervous system to accept the sad reality that the person is truly no longer available in time and space.
Section 3. Mastering your dopamine, the molecule of pursuit. Let's completely redefine how we understand our brain's reward and motivation centers. We hear the word dopamine thrown around all the time, usually branded as the pleasure chemical, right? But actually, it's really the molecule of pursuit and motivation. It drives us to look outside of ourselves for things. Compare that to serotonin, which is the molecule of satisfaction and calmness. Serotonin allows us to feel peace with what we already have. Essentially, dopamine says, go get that, while serotonin says, I have enough.
And this distinction completely explains this psychological loop of our modern phone addictions. When you first open social media, boom, you get a spike of novelty. But algorithms are built on random intermittent rewards. It's just like a slot machine. You have no idea when the next interesting post will appear. This quickly turns that novelty into a compulsion. Eventually, your dopamine drops way below baseline. You feel totally drained, yet you keep obsessively scrolling, just hoping to get that feeling back.
So, how do we fix our motivation? Well, it really comes down to this specific number, 85%. If you want to build a long-term habit, whether that's running, studying, or building a business, you shouldn't actually reward yourself every single time you hit a milestone. If you do, your dopamine curve just flattens out. The optimal science-backed schedule is to reward yourself about 85% of the time and intentionally withhold the reward the other 15%. That random lack of reward is what keeps your brain hungry and highly motivated.
Which brings us to Section 4, the ultimate daily routine. Let's talk about structuring your biology and bringing all this science together into your actual day. So here is a phenomenal science-backed morning protocol. Let's say you wake up around 6 a.m. The single most powerful thing you can do for your sleep and your metabolism is to get natural sunlight in your eyes within the first hour of waking. Next, you drop right into deep, focused cognitive work. No phones, no email. Then, notice the delayed caffeine. By waiting 90 to 120 minutes before having your coffee, you actually allow your body's natural waking systems to activate properly. Finally, engage in some physical exercise to generate that natural dopamine and adrenaline. Now, if you want to supercharge this routine, let's look at the weekly minimum effective doses for temperature exposure. Get this, just 11 total minutes of deliberate cold exposure per week drastically increases your metabolism and your resilience to stress. And if you have access to a sauna, just 57 minutes a week significantly enhances your physical recovery and can trigger massive releases of growth hormone.
You might be wondering, why do these intense physical stressors work so incredibly well? It all comes down to a concept called limbic friction. This is that internal resistance you feel when you're completely exhausted but you know you need to act, or when you're panicking but you need to stay calm. By voluntarily stepping into an ice bath or pushing through a brutal workout, you are actively training yourself to tolerate high amounts of adrenaline. You're raising your overall threshold for dealing with real-world stress.
But here's a really interesting twist. The role your mindset plays in all this friction is huge. Research actually shows that your expectations literally dictate your physiological responses. If you genuinely adopt the belief that stress grows you, your body actually processes anxiety, fatigue, and physical exertion in a much healthier, more productive way than if you just believe stress is purely destructive.
However, we definitely have to keep this in check. Yes, stress grows you, but it isn't the only way to grow in life. Voluntarily pushing through limbic friction is a really powerful tool, for sure, but it absolutely must be balanced with non-destructive rest. We're talking proper sleep, completely disconnecting, and good nutrition. You can't just run on anger and friction forever without your immune system completely crashing. True, sustainable success requires toggling between intense focus and deliberate decompression.
So now that we've unpacked exactly how your autonomic nervous system works, the biology of your motivations, and the tools to completely structure your daily routine, it all comes down to this. Which part of your biological toolkit are you going to upgrade tomorrow morning? Remember, use the body to control the mind, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.